Steph spoke at PyOhio in 2015 about the significant amount of work she put into diversifying the Hacker Society Computer Club at her university, changes that she is proud to say are still sustained today. She currently works in software analytics and observability, doing career coaching on the side for those early in their careers or transitioning in or out of management. Her real boss is her 2-year-old daughter. She spends a lot of time with her family and their dog Taz, enjoying the city of Seattle and playing soccer, real football for some of you. And now it is my absolute pleasure to introduce to you Steph.
There we go. Well, thank you for the welcome. It's so nice to be back at PyOhio again. I was last here in 2015. I'm now based out of Seattle, but we'll have a soft spot for Cleveland forever. I wanted to make sure that I met the dog tax. So that is my dog Taz as well. He is not here today, but wanted to make sure he got included. So today, I really want to be able to talk about resilient careers and how we can all use this weekend to support each other as we're continuing in our own careers. This is not a rhetorical question. Pull out some paper or crack open a text file. And I'd love folks to just take a minute and see, can you map out your career journey so far? What were some of the defining events for you, and what got you to where you are today? Highs and lows, we'll take them all. Excuse me. And don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to come up and present or anything like that, but this can be a really good activity to do with your team or with your manager to better understand where people want to go and where they've been. You might be really surprised, and you might find some new experts for you to go talk to. While you're doing that, here's mine. I cheated. I did this beforehand. I knew I was going to ask the question. So this is kind of a short map, highs and lows of my career. PyOhio 2015 is on that. But a big part of this is, no one wants career advice from somebody that hasn't been there, right? I've been promoted, I've been let go, I've been a manager, I've been an IC, I've switched job ladders, I've taken a risk on myself. Some of those panned out, most of them did. But there are all kinds of ups and downs, and I am still really proud of my career journey, and I'm sure that you will find a lot of the folks that you talk to this weekend have very similar stories. It's been a bit of a rough time in the industry right now. There have been a lot of layoffs these last couple of years. You probably have more friends than previously that have found themselves in a rough spot. We're coming off of a really big boom out of 2020, so even though the rest of the world was kind of at its lowest, there was suddenly very much a demand for tech. And we're kind of coming off of that boom, and so it's going to feel like a decline. There's an immense amount of privilege being part of tech. We are certainly better off than most other industries, but in the meantime, it still sucks, and I don't think we need to pretend that it doesn't to watch your friends be laid off or have to go find a new gig. So I am very much of the opinion that this will stabilize, things will get better, and part of that will be us as a community helping each other out. But there are real people right now that are getting caught in the crosshairs, and so a lot of people have been reevaluating their careers and trying to decide what they want to do next. We're going to talk a little bit about that today, but I want to just emphasize the hope that I have that things are going to continue to go up, and it's all going to come from us supporting each other. So, how can you help? Again, interactive. Hope you still have your text file or piece of paper. One of the things when we're designing software systems, we want to draw out our architecture diagram, understand the dependencies, and one thing that is true about your career architecture, it's all made up of people. It's people all the way down. And so I'd love for you to list 3 people that got you to where you are today. But then I also want you to list 3 people where you might be that person for somebody else. And that is how you understand the dependencies on your own growth and how you can go be that growth for other people. When we're talking about careers, a great thing to keep in mind is that beautiful is better than ugly, and that is always going to be in the eye of the beholder. You and only you get to decide if you are having the career that you want and you consider it a success. A lot of times as programmers, I think we want like the tests that we can just run. It's like, oh, am I doing okay? Yes or no. And that's really just not how this works. You kind of get to be creative and decide what you want to go try and do next. So for one person, that might be achieving a certain level. Maybe they want to be a staff engineer or a principal somewhere. For another person, they might want to work on a certain project or work for a certain cause. And at different parts of your life, you might have different goals and different achievements that you would consider to make yourself a success. I know everyone kind of hates the interview question, where do you see yourself in 10 years? Because no one's ever right. If you think back 10 years ago, would you guess that you are exactly where you are now? Probably not. You probably learned a lot along the way, changed paths a little bit, and found something that you really wanted to do and enjoy. So this is not to say you have to have every bit of your career planned out for the next several years, but I do think it's really good to be intentional about it and think about where you might want to go and find people that can help you get there. I knew that I wanted to go into engineering management someday. I didn't know that I wanted to be a site reliability engineer. And in fact, I had a lot of misconceptions about what a site reliability engineer did. I remember being in college and learning about SRE and was like, why does Google have SREs? Nothing ever breaks. Turns out it's because a lot of people work really hard to make it look that way. So you never know what you don't know until you go out and you learn about it. And so I want to talk today about a bunch of different ways that you can do that. When you're setting these goals, I think it's really better to be explicit than implicit. Write them down. And so you're going to hear that from me a lot today. Have you written it down? Writing something down forces you to think about it. And so when you write these goals, and these are some of my old goals that I had at different parts of my career, it becomes more concrete and you can figure out how to get there. So we know that software is all about trade-offs, and then we use those trade-offs to have black and white binary switches help us navigate the nuance of the grays. That's the same thing that goals are doing. So set a few goals for yourself and then work with a mentor or a manager on how to break them down into something achievable. I talked about going into SRE. When I was first going into SRE, I gave myself 6 months to see if I was actually going to like it. There was a program at Google that let you go try it out temporarily. If you loved it, great, you could stay. If not, you just went back to your software engineering team with a lot more information on how to run a system in production, and you were a better engineer for it. So if I didn't like it, I was going to quit. I was on a team that was not healthy and not doing well. I was miserable, and I just knew that I couldn't stay there. So I figured I was at one of the few places where I could get that kind of lessons on scaling production, so I was going to go try it. 3 months in, I was begging them to find me a spot on an SRE team so I could stay permanently. I loved it. And so I was really glad that I had set that goal to learn as much as I could, and along the way I found a new career. And I wound up staying on that team for 6+ years after I jumped. So again, if you had asked me in college, well, why does Google even need SREs? But it wound up being a really great way to explore. So simple is also better than complex. When you're breaking down these goals, these 4 sections are what I want you to list for each goal. So one of my favorite SRE managers did this with all of his reports, and I now do it with my reports. But when you're setting goals, make sure that you're listing what do you need to do and what can only you do for you. But also, where is your support going to come from? Do you have friends and experts that you can lean on? Do you need an introduction to maybe a mentor in a certain field in order to be successful? And then what can your manager do for you? My manager had a rule that you weren't allowed to say something vague. You couldn't just be like, oh, well, you should support me. And it's like, well, that's my job as a manager. I'm going to do that anyway, whether or not it's on your list. So let's talk about concretely, what do you need? And he wanted to hear things like, hey, I'm looking for an opportunity to present to our leadership, or I want to work on a project that will let me learn more about databases. Something like that, something concrete. And you're also going to need to know if you're successful. No one wants to write more OKRs than they have to, but having a little bit of success criteria to let you know if you've achieved it and so that you can pick a new goal is a good thing to have, but don't feel like you have to nail your business case for your personal OKR or anything like that. So much like in software, a resilient career is an intentional one. So because software engineers sometimes like getting a bit carried away, for those longer term goals, it's okay to not have every step planned. I have worked with folks that bring me their Rube Goldberg machine of their career plan, and I have to tell them to take a step back. Software careers are not as deterministic as we would always like them to be. And so while it's fine to have those plans laid out, make sure they're loosely held. Again, you don't know what you don't know. You're going to learn things as you go, and hopefully adapt and change to what you actually want, because as I said, you're the only one that gets to decide whether you like your career and whether you're successful. So pick an ambitious goal, make it actionable and feasible, but give yourself some grace. And I'm going to challenge you to be brave this weekend and talk to one other PyOhio attendee about what your goals might be, and if they can be one of the people that help you get there. My next bit is that humans love boxes, but they don't always fit in them. And as software engineers, we love to break things down and make things modular and in pieces and nice and neat. And that's just not how humans work. So when we think about things like job ladders, sometimes we will box ourselves in and we'll subscribe to a hierarchy that might not be there. When I first started out in software engineering, one of the first gigs that I landed, I was a QA engineer. And somebody gave me really bad advice that if I was a QA engineer, I was going to get pigeonholed as a QA engineer my whole career, and that I would never get to go do anything else. And that really scared me as somebody that was at the beginning of my career, until I was talking to a mentor about it, and they said, wait, what's wrong with being a QA engineer? You like it, don't you? And I was like, oh, yeah, I do. And they're like, okay, well, don't let that person tell you that that can't be like a career that you would really love. That sounds like them projecting something else. I was like, oh, you're right. And then I talked to a bunch of other engineers in other fields, and it turned out they had also started out as QA engineers, and they found what I later found to be true, that breaking stuff makes you much better at building stuff. And so I have since flipped the script. I've thrown out that bad advice and gone from, don't get pigeonholed as a QA engineer to everyone should have to be a QA engineer at one point. Everyone should get to go break stuff for fun. So you don't need to have a hierarchy of which engineering roles are better or worse than other. We're all engineers that make this industry work. And so it's actually, that hierarchy should be as flat as possible. That being said, you probably have a job ladder at your job. You do probably have to sign up for a box to have your company evaluate your performance and try to keep things fair and consistent across employees. And in that case, if you are somebody that is ever responsible for writing one of those job ladders, I really recommend that you err on the side of a lightweight or sparse job ladder. And that is because humans, again, don't fit in boxes. There are a bunch of different ways to be a good QA engineer. And so while you want to have a minimum threshold, again, to make sure you're being fair when it comes to performance reviews, you really don't want to say there's only one way to be a good QA engineer, right? There are people that are going to bring skills from other roles, other backgrounds, other hobbies, and we need to be able to let that shine in their job performance. And so I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with managers that say, oh, well, this person's not really meeting the job requirements. And I said, are they a good engineer? Are they doing what the team needs done? And, well, yeah. Okay, well, maybe the job ladder's wrong, or maybe you've got them on the wrong ladder. Is there another role where they would get better recognized for their work? And have you had that conversation with them? And so I just bring this up. So if you are ever struggling in that area of your career, I really want you to take a look, like, is this a bad job ladder or is it the wrong job ladder for me? Because it's a necessary part of our participating in our careers, but again, it's not the only thing that's going to define you as a success. So we've gone through all of that. The other thing that I want to be able to inspire you to leave with is that telling the story of your career really matters to other people. Don't go tell a 19-year-old that if they're a QA engineer, that's all they're going to get to do for their entire life, when in fact maybe they want to be. But sharing your career journey lets other people see what's possible. So I have worked for folks that have dropped out of college. I've worked for folks that had a degree that was a non-traditional degree instead of a degree in computer science. I've worked for people with degrees in astrophysics, performance arts, music, philosophy. There's so much that overlaps between these disciplines that we often take for granted. And so there might be some degrees that maybe make it easier, but that doesn't mean there's any background that's hard required. And so when you share your journey and how you got somewhere, how you made a jump, you show others what's possible and what they can do and what they might go try out that they hadn't considered was possible before. So with that said, if you're familiar with D&D alignment, I'm of the opinion that most software engineers are true neutral or lawful neutral. They like their rules, right? But they're willing to break the rules in the sense of practicality, and that's something that you need to apply to your career as well. So I mentioned when I first went to try out that SRE position, I was on a team that wasn't very healthy. Google had a rule that you could not transfer teams unless you had been on that team for 12 months. And I had been on that team for 8 months. And so I was very much respecting the rules and thinking I would have to quit to get away from this team that really wasn't working out. And I was talking to a manager mentor of a previous team that I had been on, and I was like, yeah, hey, like, I can't transfer. I've tried to make this team better. It's not going anywhere. Like, I'm miserable. I think I need to leave. And he was like, well, wait, why can't you transfer? And I said, well, it's the 12-month rule. And he was like, that's not practical, and that's not what that rule is for. That rule is to keep people from chasing the next shiny project all of the time. They want you to give a project some time before you run off to whatever the new hotness is. Google's invested a lot in you. If it's going to come down to quit or leave this team, let's talk to somebody first and make sure that's the actual practical solution. And so when I went to talk to SRE, they were like, oh, yeah, we don't care. You can come, it's fine. We realize you're participating in the spirit of the role. And so let's not have that hold you back. And so thankfully, I got accepted in that team with wide open arms, but that was not something that I knew was possible because I was adhering to those rules so strictly. And I was really missing why that rule was there. I think we see this happen in software all the time, especially if you've ever worked in an older legacy code base. Maybe you weren't there when a decision was made. You don't understand why something is there. I know that I've removed something that I shouldn't have. So the same thing applies here. By all means, respect the rules, play fair. But if you don't know why they're there, make sure you're finding out before you're making such a big decision. Now, if you are in a situation like I was, and maybe the team is not working out, the job's not what you were promised, I've seen all sorts of things happen. Don't just silently suffer. If this is a bad match, you're getting errors, you need to tell somebody. It doesn't necessarily have to be people that have some sort of power over you if you're having a psych safety issue. But find a manager, that's not your manager, or a mentor or somebody that you know you can trust their advice. And go talk and tell them what's going on and what you're seeing. And try to find a way that can make this situation work for everybody. You don't just want to keep suffering there. Like I said, I was miserable. It was starting to affect my relationships outside of work. I was worried I was getting depressed, and that just wasn't worth it. And so, again, unless you have a psych safety issue where you think that's going to make something worse, please do speak up. And if that is the case, you just need to speak up to somebody outside of that chain of command. There are always people willing to help. And so one of the things that I often remind people, we drew that network graph at the beginning, right, of folks that got you where you are and maybe folks that you helped get to where they are. There are always people willing to help. I would hazard a guess that out of everyone sitting here, you enjoy helping people. It is a joy to help others. And so when you are not letting other people help you, I need you to reframe that of I'm robbing people of the joy of helping me. And you should always be giving more than you take, but I know a lot of givers, especially in the Python community, that could take a little bit more because we want to take care of them too. So this is my reminder. If you are suffering on a team, please speak up and please assume there are always way more people that want to help and that can help than you think there are. Oh no, I lost a cute little icon. Okay, pretend a clock is there. But let's say you're having a rough time on a team, but there is something you can do about it. It's safe. Maybe it's a performance situation trying to work your way out of. Maybe you got feedback from a manager that stung. I don't want you to just guess what's going wrong. So I want you to talk to your manager and get actual specific feedback. And this up here is what actually makes good feedback. Not all feedback is good or useful, and you do not need to take all feedback. Again, I put down the feedback about being boxed in as a QA engineer for a couple of reasons. I've also had feedback that in order to survive in a male-dominated industry, I should act more like a dude. Like, thanks for sharing, no thank you, it's not really meeting these criteria up here. So when you're looking at feedback, you need to take a look and say, is it specific? Is there something that they can tie it back to a behavior that maybe I did? So maybe, hey, on Tuesday when you interrupted, so-and-so in the meeting, it had this effect. Next time, could you make sure you're handing them back the floor if you didn't mean to interrupt? When I'm saying it's actionable, having something on what is the success criteria for if this was resolved and had improved. So in that example, giving the floor back to somebody. It should be timely. No one wants feedback that was like, hey, we need to talk about something you did last year. Last year, you didn't clean up after yourself in the meeting room, and that was really disrespectful. It's like, okay, I will do better now. I could have been doing better for the last year if you had mentioned something, but I didn't know. And so if I'm giving you something that happened just maybe that morning or a few days ago, then you feel like somebody is supporting you and being better, and they can help you improve and help you avoid, putting your foot in your mouth, things like that. It should also be kind. I've definitely seen feedback that folks got from managers that was just plain rude and could have been framed a lot better. And so when people are asking, hey, is feedback kind or not, this is kind of my definition. Does the feedback assume you want and are capable of improving? If so, then it's probably kind. So if you're getting feedback and it's not meeting one of these categories, I really recommend digging in with the person and trying to figure out, how could this be more specific, actionable, timely, or kind? Sometimes it's feedback that you just have to take, and maybe you can work out how to make it meet one of these other categories with somebody else. As a manager, if I get feedback from my reports and it doesn't hit all of these categories, I'll ask them questions if they're the only people that can help me understand. But sometimes it's really more appropriate for me as the person in the position of power to go talk to somebody else, maybe in my management peer group or something like that, to have them help me understand what could be going better. And so then I'm the one doing the homework. But once you have all of these things, then it's much easier to address feedback and then, start performing again. So if you have recently received feedback that maybe caused you to prickle a little bit, I would really encourage you to maybe write it down again on that paper that we had and see if it mapped to all of these things. My guess is if it didn't, it probably increased that prickle. I would also recommend that you do this for positive feedback as well. I've had times where, maybe I've made a presentation or I've landed a project and people just said, "Oh, wow, you did a really great job." And I'm like, "Cool, can you tell me what was great about it?" And that's not because I need the ego boost or anything like that. I want to know what next time should I make sure I keep doing. And then I make sure that I save that as well. It can be so easy to zero in on that constructive negative feedback to forget that positive feedback, praise is still feedback, and that it should also meet all of these things. Ah, there's the clock. There you go. I'm not Dutch, but a lot of times this industry and therefore these career paths weren't necessarily built for people that look like me or maybe look like you. In a strong engineering culture, there's both a well-lit path of progression and nuance to let people shine as they are. I talked a little bit about that earlier. And that bar should be held consistently, but we often know there are groups that have to play against unspoken rules, and that's not currently the reality in the tech industry. So I've always made sure, personally, that I've had a cis white dude mentor, and I'm very grateful to them. In addition to mentors that looked and had similar paths to me. Because tech was likely more built for them, and they helped me learn and understand what's available to ask for. I mentioned earlier I didn't know that I could still transfer. I left a really good job and missed out on a great opportunity because I didn't know that was an exception I could ask for. But I had a cis white dude, former manager, that really cared and was able to show me, do you know this is something that you could ask for? Because he never would have thought twice about asking for it. So this is where career resilience gets a little less zen, but I think it's an important nuance to talk about. If you're one of the people where the straightforward path might not match you, maybe you're a gender minority, maybe you're not white, maybe you're LGBT, disabled, neurodivergent, we sometimes have to find out what the different set of rules are for us and figure out how to make that work. And ideally, we're also trying to make sure that when that is happening and that we're seeing it, that we're making it better for the folks behind us. So if you are part of the group where you feel like tech has been built for you, I really think your superpower and your responsibility is to help make that inclusive for more people. I would love to get to a point where what we can say in the upper left is true. There's a clear and obvious path for everybody through tech. Right now, that's not true. But if you're here, you are investing in the community that can help do that. So great job for everybody showing up to PyOhio. If you feel like you should be doing more, it's okay if you haven't done that before. You can start now. The thing I want to ask people the most is to do some homework first. It's the best way to keep your foot out of your mouth. And so if you're giving advice to a community or helping take care of a community, make sure that the person that you might be talking to is actually looking for advice. I've seen a lot of well-intended people give unsolicited advice that maybe misses the mark. One way that you can avoid doing this is just when someone's telling you about a problem, you can say like, hey, do you want someone to listen to you vent right now, or do you want advice, or both? and then let them decide, and then respect whatever they say. And you will find that you get much more authentic responses from these folks, and that you're then giving that person the support that they actually need. So when we're working as a community in a place like this, these are the couple things that I really recommend that you do. So again, if you are here, you're already contributing to the community. You are the community just by showing up. But there are other things that you can do once you leave here this weekend that will help keep you connected with people. Just check in. Even if you don't have to be the best buddies to send someone like a LinkedIn message or asking if they want to go get lunch. I recently had a former report ask me, like, how do you keep in touch with so many people? And I just say, well, like, I eat every day. And so I try to ask people, like, would you want to go get lunch with me? Would you want to jump on a video chat while we both connect or eat, and eat? And so I don't care how long it's been since I've heard from them. I'll have lunch with somebody. And so this weekend, I'm catching up with friends that I haven't seen in a while. I'm going to meet new people. I will surely eat with them as well. And so it's fine to just send someone a message and say, like, hey, I saw your LinkedIn post, saw you started a new job, like, congrats, do you want to catch up sometime? And you know, sometimes people are going to be very busy, they can't always answer, but I think you'll find far, far more often than not, people are happy to connect. And then just cheer people on. Again, these careers are not competitions. Celebrate each other's success. I have a couple friends where I know I could put out the worst blog post of all time, and they would still be like, yeah, Steph, you wrote it, good job, right? They'll build me up, and when I do put something out there, or maybe my team has a big success, I know that they'll show up and cheer and share ideas and make sure that people recognize the work that I did, and just recognize the hard work that it took to get there. And again, make sure you're just contributing. Participating in these conferences is great. Sharing your ideas and signing up to give a tech talk or a lightning talk, awesome. There are always small ways that you can contribute. Pass out some stickers, right? Like, make sure that you're just reaching out and being part of that community. If you're always just quiet, you're not really getting that full benefit. The Discord's another great place to do that. Just show up and share things and you know, comment when other people are sharing. That's how you build those connections over time. So as you're building those connections, you're gonna find more people whose opinion you really trust. And so as we were doing the goal setting, the job ladder review, you know, thinking about when maybe times are hard, you're gonna have more people who you trust to get a second opinion from. And so I really recommend to also use your community. You don't have to ask somebody to be like knighted as your mentor, right? A lot of times mentoring kind of comes from a community. I have shown up to places where I don't really know many people and said, like, hey, this is what I'm thinking about having my team do. Good idea, bad idea? And they'll let you know. So if you're thinking about taking a big risk in your career, maybe a big next step, talk to a couple people about it. When it came time for me to leave Google, I was really struggling with the decision. SRE had been very good to me, and I sought out a couple other managers and directors, and I really wanted them to hear me out and then tell me if they thought I was making a wrong move or being ridiculous. And I had one mentor look at me, and she was like, Steph, have you gotten everything you've needed out of the job? And I said, I think so. And she said, are you looking for permission from me or somebody else to take the risk and jump to the next thing? And I was like, oh, maybe. She's like, all right, you have my permission. I was like, okay. But if I had turned up and I had explained what I wanted to go do next, and I couldn't explain it, or I wasn't able to articulate like what the current job wasn't meeting, I do trust that community that I had built and those people that I turned to would tell me, hey, like maybe you actually just need a break. Have you taken a vacation? Let me see if this feels better in 2 weeks after some time on a beach. And I was really grateful that because I was able to say like, hey, I want to leave because I want to go do these 3 things and I can't get that here, then they were able to tell me, yes, you have thought about this. This implementation is a good idea, and even though it's scary, you should go do it. So that is part of why we build up these communities, because we want people to look out for us and we want to look out for each other. And so if there's something you want to go do, tell someone about it and let them help you find the best plan forward. So for people that have picked up on this, this has been career advice through the lens of the Zen of Python. This is the final aphorism in the Zen of Python, and man, I could not make this one work for careers. So this one is left to you as the audience. If you find career advice that fits namespaces and doing more of it, come tell me about it. I'd love to hear it, because I got nothing. So, as I said, this was focused on the Zen of Python, and I do think a lot of the Zen of Python is about finding balance in the trade-offs and resisting the very natural programmer urge to take things to extremes or hard and fast rules. So, by all means, apply this to your code, but do also apply it to yourself in your life. If there's one thing I've learned in my career so far, it's that being intentional about trying to improve will take you further than any other habit. There's also another talk, I believe, by Paul Hutchings later about the Zen of Python, and so if this is new to you, please go to that talk. I will be there. And I want to close on a quote from one of my favorite mentors. Just kidding, I just listened to her albums. But there is no career path that comes free of negativity. And so even though tech might be having a bump right now, this is not tech's first bump in the road. It won't be the last. But the positives far outweigh the negatives. And so if you hit like a roadblock in your career, I don't want you to think, that's it, I'm done. I want you to think, how do I lean on my community to pull myself out of this and to find something new and find something better? And with that, I just want to give a big thank you to my husband, Jonathan, for supporting me while I wrote this talk at weird hours and handled parenting our tiny boss while also cheering me on. If there is anything career-related that you want to talk about this weekend, I am happy to give you an opinion or some advice, or connect you with somebody that might have better advice than me. So please take this weekend, make the most out of it, use this community, and continue to be a part of it. And I'm so grateful to be back at PyOhio. Thank you.